Letter 53 of Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3, by Samuel Richardson. Letter 53. Miss Clarissa Harlowe to Miss Howe, with the preceding. Saturday morning, April 22nd. I have just now received the enclosed letter from my Aunt Harvey. Be pleased, my dear, to keep her secret of having written to the unhappy wretch, her niece. I may go to London, I see, or where I will, no matter what becomes of me. I was the willinger to suspend my journey thither till I heard from Harlowe Place. I thought if I could be encouraged to hope for a reconciliation, I would let this man see that he should not have me in his power, but upon my own terms, if at all. But I find I must be his, whether I will or not, and perhaps through still greater mortifications than those great ones which I have already met with. And must I be so absolutely thrown upon a man with whom I am not at all satisfied? My letter is sent, you see, to Harlowe Place. My heart aches for the reception it may meet with there. One comfort only arises to me from its being sent, that my aunt will clear herself, by the communication, from the supposition of having corresponded with the poor creature whom they have all determined to reprobate. It is no small part of my misfortune that I have weakened the confidence one dear friend has in another, and made one look cool upon another. My poor cousin Dolly, you see, has reason to regret on this account, as well as my aunt. Miss Howe, my dear Miss Howe, is but too sensible of the effects of my fault, having had more words with her mother on my account than ever she had on any other. Yet the man who has drawn me into all this evil I must be thrown upon. Much did I consider, much did I apprehend, before my fault, supposing I were to be guilty of it, but I saw it not in all its shocking lights. And now to know that my father, an hour before he received the tidings of my supposed flight, owned that he loved me as his life, that he would have been all condescension, that he would, oh my dear, how tender, how mortifyingly tender now in him. My aunt need not have been afraid that it should be known that she has sent me such a letter as this. A father to kneel to his child, there would not indeed have been any bearing of that. What I should have done in such a case, I know not. Death would have been much more welcome to me than such a sight, on such an occasion, in behalf of a man so very, very disgustful to me. But I had deserved annihilation, had I suffered my father to kneel in vain. Yet, had but the sacrifice of inclination and personal preference been all, less than kneeling should have been done. My duty should have been the conqueror of my inclination. But an aversion so very sincere. The triumph of a cruel and ambitious brother, ever so uncontrollable, joined with the insults of an envious sister, bringing wills to theirs, which otherwise would have been favorable to me. The marriage duties, so absolutely indispensable, so solemnly to be engaged for, The marriage intimacies, permit me to say to you, my friend, what the purest, although with apprehension, must think of, so very intimate, myself one who has never looked upon any duty, much less a voluntary vowed one, with indifference. Could it have been honest in me to have given my hand to an odious hand, and to have consented to such a more than reluctant, such an immiscible union, if I may so call it, for life too? Did not I think more and deeper than most young creatures think? Did I not weigh, did I not reflect, I might perhaps have been less obstinate. Delicacy, may I presume to call it, thinking, weighing, reflection, are not blessings. I have not found them such, in the degree I have them. I wish I had been able, in some very nice cases, to have known what indifference was, yet not to have my ignorance imputable to me as a fault. O my dear, the finer sensibilities, if I may suppose mine to be such, make not happy. What a method had my friends intended to take with me! This, I dare say, was a method chalked out by my brother. He, I suppose, was to have presented me to all my assembled friends as the daughter capable of preferring her own will to the wills of them all. It would have been a sore trial, no doubt. Would to heaven, however, I had stood it. Let the issue have been what it would. Would to heaven I had stood it. There may be murder, my aunt says. This looks as if she knew of Singleton's rash plot. Such an upshot, as she calls it, of this unhappy affair, heaven avert. She flies a thought that I can less dwell upon, a cruel thought. But she has a poor opinion of the purity she compliments me with, if she thinks that I am not, by God's grace, above temptation from this sex. Although I never saw a man whose person I could like before this man, yet his faulty character allowed me but little merit from the indifference I pretended to on his account. But, now I see him in nearer lights, I like him less than ever. Unpolite, cruel, insolent, unwise, a trifler with his own happiness, the destroyer of mine. His last treatment, my fate too visibly in his power, master of his own wishes, shame to say it, if he knew what to wish for. Indeed, I never liked him so little as now. Upon my word, I think I could hate him, if I do not already hate him, sooner than any man I ever thought tolerably of. A good reason why. Because I have been more disappointed in my expectations of him, although they never were so high as to have made him my choice in preference to the single life, had that been permitted me. Still, if the giving him up forever will make my path to reconciliation easy, and if they will signify as much to me, they shall see that I never will be his, for I have the vanity to think my soul his soul's superior. You will say I rave. Forbidden to write to my aunt, and taught to despair of reconciliation, you, my dear, must be troubled with my passionate resentments. What a wretch was I to give him a meeting, since by that I put it out of my power to meet my assembled friends. All would now, if I had met them, been over. And who can tell when my present distresses will? Rid of both men, I had been now perhaps at my Aunt Harvey's or my Uncle Antony's, wishing for my cousin Morden's arrival, who might have accommodated all. I intended, indeed, to have stood it. And if I had, how know I by whose name I might now have been called? For how should I have resisted a condescending, a kneeling father, had he been able to have kept his temper with me? Yet my aunt says he would have relented, if I had not. Perhaps he would have been moved by my humility, before he could have shown such undue condescension. Such temper as he would have received me with might have been improved upon in my favour. And that he had designed ultimately to relent, how it clears my friends, at least to themselves, and condemns me. Oh, why were my aunt's hints, I remember them now, so very dark? Yet I intended to have returned after the interview, and then perhaps she would have explained herself. Oh, this artful, this designing Lovelace! Yet I must repeat that most ought I to blame myself for meeting him. But far, far be banished from me fruitless recrimination. Far banished, because fruitless. Let me wrap myself about in the mantle of my own integrity, and take comfort in my unfaulty intention. Since it is now too late to look back, let me collect all my fortitude, and endeavour to stand those shafts of angry Providence, which it will not permit me to shun. That, whatever the trials may be which I am destined to undergo, I may not behave unworthily in them, and may come out amended by them. Join with me in this prayer, my beloved friend, for your own honour's sake, as well as for love's sake. Join with me in it, lest a deviation on my side should, with the censorious, cast a shade upon a friendship which has no levity in it, and the basis of which is improvement, as well in the greater as lesser duties. Clarissa Harlowe. End of Letter 53. Letter 54 of Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3, by Samuel Richardson. Letter 54. Miss Clarissa Harlowe to Miss Howe, Saturday afternoon, April 22nd. Oh, my best, my only friend, now indeed is my heart broken. It has received a blow it never will recover. Think not of corresponding with the wretch who now seems absolutely devoted. How can it be otherwise, if a parent's curses have the weight I always attributed to them, and have heard so many instances in confirmation of that weight? Yes, my dear Miss Howe, superadded to all my afflictions, I have the consequences of a father's curse to struggle with. How shall I support this reflection, my past and my present situation so much authorizing my apprehensions? I have at last a letter from my unrelenting sister. Would to heaven I had not provoked it by my second letter to my Aunt Harvey. It lay ready for me, it seems. The thunder slept till I awakened it. I enclose the letter itself. transcribe it I cannot. There is no bearing the thoughts of it, for, shocking reflection, the curse extends to the life beyond this. I am in the depth of vaporish despondency. I can only repeat, shun, fly, correspond not with a wretch so devoted as Clarissa Harlowe. End of Letter 54.
Letter 55 of Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3, by Samuel Richardson. Letter 55. To Miss Clarissa Harlowe, to be left at Mr. Osgood's, near Soho Square, Friday, April 21st. It was expected you would send again to me, or to my aunt Hervey. The enclosed has laid ready for you, therefore, by direction. You will have no answer from anybody. Write to whom you will, as often as you will, and what you will. It was designed to bring you back by proper authority, or to send you whither the disgraces you have brought upon us all should be in the likeliest way, after a while, to be forgotten. But I believe that design is over, so you may range securely. Nobody will think it worth while to give themselves any trouble about you. Yet my mother has obtained to send you your clothes of all sorts, but your clothes only. This is a favor you'll see by the within letter not designed you. And now, not granted for your sake, but because my poor mother cannot bear in her sight anything you used to wear. Read the enclosed and tremble. Arabella Harlowe, to the most ungrateful and undutiful of daughters of Harlowe Place, April 15th. Sister that was. For I know not what name you are permitted, or choose to go by. You have filled us all with distraction. My father, in the first agitations of his mind, on discovering your shameful elopement, imprecated on his knees a fearful curse upon you. Tremble at the recital of it. No less, then, that you meet your punishment both here and hereafter, by means of the very wretch in whom you have chosen to place your wicked confidence. Your clothes will not be sent you. You seem, by leaving them behind you, to have been secure of them, whenever you demanded them. But perhaps you could think of nothing but meeting your fellow, nothing but how to get off your forward self, for everything seems to have been forgotten but what was to contribute to your wicked flight. Yet you judged right, perhaps, that you would have been detected had you endeavored to get away with your clothes. Cunning creature! Not to make one step that we would guess at you by. Cunning to effect your own ruin and disgrace of all the family. But what does the wretch put you upon writing for your things? For fear you should not be too expensive to him? That is it, I suppose. Was there ever a giddier creature? Yet this is the celebrated, the blazing Clarissa. Clarissa what? Harlowe, no doubt. And Harlowe it will be, to the disgrace of us all. Your drawings and your pieces are all taken down, as is also your whole-length picture, in the Vandyck taste. From your late parlour they are all taken down, and thrown into your closet, which will be nailed up, as if it were not part of the house, there to perish together. For who can bear to see them? Yet how did they use to be shown to everybody? The former for the magnifying of your dainty finger-works, the latter for the imputed dignity now in the dust, of your boasted figure, and this by whose fond parents, from whom you have run away with so much, yet with so little contrivance. My brother vows revenge upon your libertine. For the family's sake he vows it, not for yours. For he will treat you, he declares, like a common creature, if he ever sees you, and no doubt that this will be your fate. My uncle Harlowe renounces you forever, So does my uncle Antony. So does my aunt Hervey. So do I, base, unworthy creature, the disgrace of a good family, and the property of an infamous rake. As questionless you will soon find yourself, if you have not already. Your books, since they have not taught you what belongs to your family, to your sex, to your education, will not be sent to you. Your money neither, nor yet the jewels so undeservedly made yours. For it is wished that you may be seen a beggar along London streets. If all this is heavy, lay your hand to your heart and ask yourself why you have deserved it. For every man whom your pride taught you to reject with scorn, Mr. Solmes excepted, who, however, has reason to rejoice that he missed you, triumphs in your shameful elopement, and now knows how to account for his being refused. Your worthy Norton is ashamed of you, and mingles her tears with your mother's, both reproaching themselves for their shares in you, and in so fruitless an education. Everybody, in short, is ashamed of you, but none more than Arabella Harlowe. End of letter 55.
Letter 56 of Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Lynn Thompson. Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3, by Samuel Richardson. Letter 56. Miss Howe to Miss Clarissa Harlowe, Tuesday, April 25th. Be comforted, be not dejected, do not despond, my dearest and best beloved friend. God Almighty is just and gracious, and gives not his assent to rash and inhuman curses. Can you think that heaven will seal to the black passions of its depraved creatures? If it did, malice, envy, and revenge would triumph, and the best of the human race, blasted by the malignity of the worst, would be miserable in both worlds. This outrageousness shows only what manner of spirit they are of, and how much their sordid views exceed their parental love. 'Tis all owing to rage and disappointment in designs proper to be frustrated. If you consider this malediction as it ought to be considered, a person of your piety must and will rather pity and pray for your rash father than terrify yourself on the occasion. None but God can curse. Parents or others, whoever they be, can only pray to him to curse, and such prayers can have no weight with a just and all-perfect being, the motives to which are unreasonable, and the end proposed by them cruel. Has not God commanded us to bless and curse not? Pray for your father then, I repeat, that he incur not the malediction he has announced on you, since he has broken, as you see, a command truly divine, while you, by obeying that other precept which enjoins us to pray for them that persecute and curse us, will turn the curse into a blessing. My mother blames them for this wicked letter of your sister, and she pities you, and, of her own accord, wished me to write to comfort you for this once, for she says, it is a pity your heart, which was so noble, and when the sense of your fault and the weight of a parent's curse are so strong upon you, should be quite broken. Lord bless me, how your aunt writes! Can there be two rights and two wrongs in palpable cases? But, my dear, she must be wrong, so they have all been, justify themselves now as they will. They can only justify themselves to themselves from selfish principles, resolving to acquit, not fairly to try themselves. Did your unkind aunt, in all the tedious progress of your contentions with them, give you the least hope of their relenting? Her dark hints now I recollect as well as you, but why was anything good or hopeful to be darkly hinted? How easy was it for her, who pretended always to love you, for her who can give such flowing license to her pen for your hurt, to have given you one word, one line in confidence of their pretended change of measures. But do not mind their after pretences, my dear. All of them serve but for tacit confessions of their vile usage of you. I will keep your aunt's secret, never fear. I would not, on any consideration, that my mother should see her letter. You will now see that you have nothing left but to overcome all scrupulousness, and marry as soon as you have an opportunity. Determine to do so, my dear. I will give you a motive for it, regarding myself. For this I have resolved, and this I have vowed. O friend, the best beloved of my heart, be not angry with me for it. That so long as your happiness is in suspense, I will never think of marrying. In justice to the man I shall have, I have vowed this, for, my dear, must I not be miserable if you are so? And what an unworthy wife must I be to any man who cannot have interest enough in my heart to make his obligingness a balance for an affliction he has not caused? I would show Lovelace your sister's abominable letter were it to me. I enclose it. It shall not have a place in this house. This will enter him of course into the subject which you now ought to have most in view. Let him see what you suffer for him. He cannot prove base to such an excellence. I should never enjoy my head or my senses should this man prove a villain to you. With a merit so exalted, you may have punishment more than enough for your involuntary fault in that husband. I would not have you be too sure that their subject to seize you is over. The words intimating that it is over, in the letter of that abominable Arabella, seem calculated to give you security. She only says she believes that design is over, and I do not yet find from Miss Lloyd that it is disavowed. So it will be best, when you are in London, to be private, and for fear of the worst, to let every direction to be a third place. For I would not, for the world, have you fall into the hands of such flaming and malevolent spirits by surprise. I will myself be content to direct you at some third place, and I shall then be able to aver to my mother, or to any other if occasion be, that I know not where you are. Besides, this measure will make you less apprehensive of the consequences of their violence, should they resolve to attempt to carry you off in spite of Lovelace. I would have you direct to Mr. Hickman even your answer to this. I have a reason for it. Besides, my mother, notwithstanding this particular indulgence, is very positive. They have prevailed upon her, I know, to give her word to this purpose. Spiteful, poor wretches! How I hate in particular your foolish uncle Antony. I would not have your thought dwell on the contents of your sister's shocking letter, but pursue other subjects, the subjects before you, and let me know your progress with Lovelace, and what he says to this diabolical curse. So far you may enter into this hateful subject. I expect that this will aptly introduce the grand topic between you, without needing a mediator. Come, my dear, when things are at worst they will mend. Good often comes when evil is expected. But if you despond, there can be no hopes of cure. Don't let them break your heart, for that is plain to me is now what some people have in view for you to do. How poor to withhold from you your books, your jewels, and your money. As money is all you can at present want, since they will vouchsafe to send your clothes, I send 50 guineas by the bearer, enclosed in single papers in my Norris's miscellanies. I charge you, as you love me, return them not. I have more at your service, so if you like not your lodgings or his behaviour when you get to town, leave both them and him out of hand. I would advise you to write to Mr. Morden without delay. If he intends for England, it may hasten him, and you will do very well till he can come. But surely Lovelace will be infatuated, if he secure not his happiness by your consent, before that of Mr. Morden's is made needful on his arrival. Once more, my dear, let me beg of you to be comforted. Manage with your usual prudence the stake before you, and all will still be happy. Suppose yourself to be me, and me to be you. You may, for your distress is mine, and then you will add full day to these but glimmering lights which are held out to you by your ever affectionate and faithful Anna Howe. I hurry this away by Robert. I will inquire into the truth of your aunt's pretences about the change of measures which she says they intended in case you had not gone away. End of Letter 56.
Letter 57 of Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3, by Samuel Richardson. Letter 57, Miss Clarissa Harlowe to Miss Howe, Wednesday morning, April 26th. Your letter, my beloved Miss Howe, gives me great comfort. How sweetly do I experience the truth of the wise man's observation, that a faithful friend is the medicine of life. Your messenger finds me just setting out for London, the chaise at the door. Already I have taken leave of the good widow, who has obliged me with the company of her eldest daughter, at Mr. Lovelace's request, while he rides by us. The young gentlewoman is to return in 2 or 3 days with the chaise, in its way to my Lord M.'s Hertfordshire seat. I received my sister's dreadful letter on Sunday, when Mr. Lovelace was out. He saw on his return my extreme anguish and dejection, and he was told how much worse I had been, for I had fainted away more than once. I think the contents of it have touched my head as well as my heart. He would fain have seen it, but I would not permit that because of the threatenings he would have found in it against himself. As it was, the effect it had upon me made him break out into execrations and menaces. I was so ill that he himself advised me to delay going to town on Monday, as I proposed to do. He is extremely regardful and tender of me. All that you supposed would follow the violent letter from him has followed it. He has offered himself to my acceptance in so unreserved a manner, that I am concerned I have written so freely and diffidently of him. Pray, my dearest friend, keep to yourself everything that may appear disreputable of him from me. I must acquaint you that his kind behavior, and my low-spiritedness, cooperating with your former advice, and my unhappy situation, made me that very Sunday evening receive unreservedly his declarations, and now indeed I am more in his power than ever. He presses me every hour, indeed as needlessly, as unkindly, for fresh tokens of my esteem for him and confidence in him. And as I have been brought to some verbal concessions, if he should prove unworthy, I am sure I shall have great reason to blame this violent letter, for I have no resolution at all. Abandoned thus of all my natural friends, of whose returning favour I have now no hopes, and only you to pity me, and you restrained, as I may say, I have been forced to turn my desolate heart to such protection as I could find. All my comfort is, that your advice repeatedly given me to the same purpose, in your kind letter before me, warrants me. I now set out the more cheerfully to London on that account, for before a heavy weight hung upon my heart, and although I thought it best and safest to go, yet my spirits sunk, I know not why, at every motion I made towards a preparation for it. I hope no mischief will happen on the road. I hope these violent spirits will not meet. Everyone is waiting for me. Pardon me, my best, my kindest friend, that I return your Norris. In these more promising prospects, I cannot have occasion for your favor. Besides, I have some hope that with my clothes they will send me the money I wrote for, although it is denied me in the letter. If they do not, and if I should have occasion, I can but signify my wants to so ready a friend. And I have promised to be obliged only to you. But I had rather, methinks, you should have it still to say, if challenged, that nothing of this nature has been either requested or done. I say this with a view entirely to my future hopes of recovering your mother's favor, which, next to that of my own father and mother, I am most solicitous to recover. I must acquaint you with one thing more, notwithstanding my hurry, and that is, that Mr. Lovelace offered either to attend me to Lord M.'s, or to send for his chaplain yesterday. He pressed me to consent to this proposal most earnestly, and even seemed desirous rather to have the ceremony pass here than at London. For when there, I had told him, it was time enough to consider of so weighty and important a matter. Now, upon the receipt of your consolatory letter, methinks I could almost wish it had been in my power to comply with his earnest solicitations. But this dreadful letter has unhinged my whole frame. Then some little punctilio surely is necessary. No preparation made, no articles drawn, no license ready, grief so extreme, no pleasure in prospect, nor so much as in wish. O my dear, who could think of entering into so solemn an engagement? Who, so unprepared, could seem to be so ready? If I could flatter myself that my indifference to all the joys of this life proceeded from proper motives, not rather from the disappointments and mortifications my pride has met with, how much rather, I think, should I choose to be wedded to my shroud than to any man on earth. Indeed, I have at present no pleasure but in your friendship. Continue that to me, I beseech you. If my heart rises hereafter to a capacity of more, it must be built on that foundation. My spirits sink again on setting out. Excuse this depth of vaporish dejection, which forbids me even hope, the cordial that keeps life from stagnating, and which never was denied me till within these 48 hours. But 'tis time to relieve you. Adieu, my best beloved and kindest friend. Pray for your Clarissa. End of Letter 57.
Letter 58 of Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Lynn Thompson. Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3, by Samuel Richardson. Letter 58. Miss Howe to Miss Clarissa Harlowe, Thursday, April 27. I am sorry you sent back my Norris, but you must be allowed to do as you please. So must I, in my turn. We must neither of us, perhaps, expect absolutely of the other what is the rightest thing to be done, and yet few folks, so young as we are, better know what the rightest is. I cannot separate myself from you, although I give a double instance of my vanity in joining myself with you in this particular assertion. I am most heartily rejoiced that your prospects are so much mended, and that, as I hoped, good has been produced out of evil. What must the man have been, what must have been his views, had he not taken such a turn, upon a letter so vile, and upon a treatment so unnatural, himself principally the occasion of it? You know best your motives for suspending, but I wish you could have taken him at offers so earnest. Mr. Lovelace, in his next letter, tells his friend how extremely ill the lady was, recovering from fits to fall into stronger fits, and nobody expecting her life. She had not, he says, acquainted Miss Howe how very ill she was. In the next letter she tells Miss Howe that her motives for suspending were not merely ceremonious ones. Why should you not have permitted him to send for Lord M.'s chaplain? If punctilio only was in the way, and want of a licence, and of proper preparations, and such like, my service to you, my dear, and there is ceremony tantamount to your ceremony. Do not, my dear friend, again be so very melancholy a decliner as to prefer a shroud, when the matter you wish for is in your power, and when, as you have justly said heretofore, persons cannot die when they will. But it is a strange perverseness in human nature that we slight that when near us which at a distance we wish for. You have now but one point to pursue, that is marriage. Let that be solemnized. I leave the rest to Providence, and to use your own words in a former letter, follow as that leads. You will have a handsome man, a genteel man. He would be a wise man, if he were not so vain of his endowments, and wild and intriguing. But while the eyes of many of our sex, taken by so specious a form, and so brilliant a spirit, encourage that vanity, you must be contented to stay till grey hairs and prudence enter upon the stage together. You would not have everything in the same man. I believe Mr. Hickman treads no crooked paths, but he hobbles most ungraciously in a straight one. Yet Mr. Hickman, though he pleases not my eye, nor diverts my ear, will not, as I believe, disgust the one, nor shock the other. Your man, as I have lately said, will always keep up attention. You will always be alive with him, though perhaps more from fears than hopes, while Mr. Hickman will neither say anything to keep one awake, nor yet, by shocking adventures, make one's slumbers uneasy. I believe I now know which of the two men so prudent a person as you would, at first, have chosen. Nor doubt I that you can guess which I would have made choice of, if I might. But proud as we are, the proudest of all of us can only refuse, and many of us accept the but half worthy, for fear a still worse should offer. If men had chosen their mistresses for spirits like their own, although Mr. Lovelace at the long run may have been too many for me, I don't doubt but I should have given heartache, for 1/2 year at least, while you, with my dull swift, would have glided on as serenely, as calmly, as unaccountably as the succeeding seasons, and varying no otherwise than they, to bring on new beauties and conveniences to all about you. I was going on in this style, but my mother broke in upon me with a prohibitory aspect. She gave me leave for one letter only. She had just parted with your odious uncle, and they have been in close conference again. She has vexed me. I must lay this by till I hear from you again, not knowing whither to send it. Direct me to a third place, as I desired in my former. I told my mother, on her challenging me, that I was writing indeed, and to you, but it was only to amuse myself, for I protested that I knew not where to send to you. I hope that your next may inform me of your nuptials, although the next to that were to acquaint me that he was the most ungratefullest monster on earth, as he must be, if not the kindest husband in it. My mother has vexed me, but so, on revising, I wrote before. But she has unhinged me, as you call it, pretended to catechize Hickman. I assure you, for contributing to our supposed correspondence. Catechised him severely too, upon my word. I believe I have a sneaking kindness for the sneaking fellow, for I cannot endure that anybody should treat him like a fool but myself. I believe between you and me the good lady forgot herself. I heard her loud. She possibly imagined that my father was come to life again. Yet the meekness of the man might have soon convinced her, I should have thought, for my father, it seems, would talk as loud as she, I suppose, though within a few yards of each other, as if both were out of their way, and were hallooing at half a mile's distance, to get in again. I know you'll blame me for this sauciness, but I told you I was vexed, and if I had not a spirit, my parentage on both sides might be doubted. You must not chide me too severely, however, because I have learned of you not to defend myself in an error, and I own I am wrong, and that's enough. You won't be so generous in this case as you are in every other, if you don't think it is. Adieu, my dear, I will love you, and love you for ever. So subscribes your Anna Howe. End of letter 58. Letter 59 of Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Lynn Thompson. Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3, by Samuel Richardson. Letter 59. From Miss Howe, enclosed in the above, Thursday, April 27th. I have been making inquiry, as I told you I would, whether your relations had really, before you left them, resolved upon that change of measures which your aunt mentions in her letter, and by laying together several pieces of intelligence, some drawn from my mother, through your uncle Antony's communications, some from Miss Lloyd, by your sisters, and some by a third way that I shall not tell you of, I have reason to think the following a true state of the case. That there was no intention of a change of measures till within 2 or 3 days of your going away. On the contrary, your brother and sister, though they had no hope of prevailing with you in Solmes's favour, were resolved never to give over their persecutions till they had pushed you upon taking some step, which, by help of their good offices, should be deemed inexcusable by the half-witted souls they had to play upon. But that, at last, your mother, tired with, and perhaps ashamed of the passive part she had acted, thought fit to declare to Miss Bell that she was determined to try and put an end to the family feuds, and to get your uncle Harlowe to second her endeavours. This alarmed your brother and sister, and then a change of measures was resolved upon. Solmes's offers were, however, too advantageous to be given up, and your father's condescension was now to be their sole dependence, and, as they give it out, the trying of what that would do with you, their last effort. And indeed, my dear, this must have succeeded, I verily think, with such a daughter as they had to deal with, could that father, who never, I dare say, kneeled in his life but to his God, have so far condescended as your aunt writes he would. But then, my dear, what would this have done? Perhaps you would have given Lovelace this meeting in hopes to pacify him and prevent mischief, supposing that they had given you time, and not hurried you directly into the state. But if you had not met him, you see that he was resolved to visit them, and well attended too, and what must have been the consequence? So that, upon the whole, we know not but matters may be best as they are, however disagreeable that best is. I hope your considerate and thoughtful mind will make a good use of this hint. Who would not with patience sustain even a great evil, if she could persuade herself that it was kindly dispensed, in order to prevent a still greater, especially if she could sit down, as you can, and acquit her own heart? Permit me one further observation. Do we not see, from the above state of the matter, what might have been done before the worthy person of your family, had she exerted the mother in behalf of a child so meritorious, yet so much oppressed? Adieu, my dear. I will be ever yours, Anna Howe.
Clarissa, in her answer to the first of the two last letters, chides her friend for giving so little weight to her advice in relation to her behavior to her mother. It may be proper to insert here the following extracts from that answer, though a little before the time. "You assume, my dear," says she, "your usual and ever agreeable style in what you write of the two gentlemen, and how unaptly you think they have chosen, Mr. Hickman in addressing you, Mr. Lovelace me. But I am inclinable to believe that, with a view to happiness, however two mild tempers might agree, two high ones would make sad work of it, both at one time violent and unyielding. You two might, indeed, have raquetted the ball betwixt you, as you say. But Mr. Hickman, by his gentle manners, seems formed for you, if you go not too far with him. If you do, it would be a tameness in him to bear it, which would make a man more contemptible than Mr. Hickman can ever deserve to be made. Nor is it a disgrace for even a brave man, who knows what a woman is to vow to him afterwards, to be very obsequious beforehand. Do you think it is to the credit of Mr. Lovelace's character that he can be offensive and violent? Does he not, as all such spirits must, subject himself to the necessity of making submissions for his excesses far more mortifying to a proud heart than those condescensions which the high-spirited are so apt to impute as a weakness of mind in such a man as Mr. Hickman? Let me tell you, my dear, that Mr. Hickman is such a one as would rather bear an affront from a lady than offer one to her. He had rather, I dare say, that she should have occasion to ask his pardon than he hers. But, my dear, you have outlived your first passion, and had the second man been an angel, he would not have been more than indifferent to you. My motives for suspending, proceeds she, were not merely ceremonious ones. I was really very ill. I could not hold up my head. The contents of my sister's letters had pierced my heart. Indeed, my dear, I was very ill. And was I, moreover, to be as ready to accept his offer as if I were afraid he never would repeat it? I see with great regret that your mamma is still immovably bent against our correspondence. What shall I do about it? It goes against me to continue it, or to wish you to favour me with returns. Yet I have so managed my matters that I have no friend but you to advise with. It is enough to make one indeed wish to be married to this man, though a man of errors, as he has worthy relations of my own sex, and I should have some friends, I hope. And having some, I might have more. For as money is said to increase money, so does the countenance of persons of character increase friends, while the destitute must be destitute. It goes against my heart to beg of you to discontinue corresponding with me, and yet it is against my conscience to carry it on against parental prohibition. But I dare not use all the arguments against it that I could use. And why? For fear I should convince you, and you should reject me as the rest of my friends have done. I leave, therefore, the determination of this point upon you. I am not, I find, to be trusted with it. But be mine all the fault, and all the punishment, if it be punishable. And certainly it must, when it can be the cause of the letter I have before me, and which I must no farther animadvert upon, because you forbid me to do so. To the second letter, among other things, she says, "So, my dear, you seem to think that there was a fate in my error. The cordial, the considerate friendship is seen in the observation you make on this occasion. Yet since things have happened as they have, would to heaven I could hear that all the world acquitted my father, or at least my mother, whose character, before these family feuds broke out, was the subject of everyone's admiration. Don't let anybody say from you, so that it may come to her ear, that she might, from a timely exertion of her fine talents, have saved her unhappy child. You will observe, my dear, that in her own good time, when she saw there was not likely to be an end to my brother's persecutions, she resolved to exert herself, but the pragmatical daughter, by the fatal meeting, precipitated all, and frustrated her indulgent designs. O my love, I am now convinced by dear experience, that while children are so happy as to have parents or guardians whom they may consult, they should not presume, no, not with the best and purest intentions, to follow their own conceits in material cases. A ray of hope of future reconciliation darts in upon my mind, from the intention you tell me my mother had to exert herself in my favor had I not gone away. And my hope is the stronger, as this communication points out to me, that my Uncle Harlowe's interest is likely, in my mother's opinion, to be of weight, if it could be engaged. It will behove me, perhaps, to apply to that dear uncle, if a proper occasion offer. End of Letter 59.
Letter 60 of Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Larry Wilson. Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3, by Samuel Richardson, Chapter 60. Mr. Lovelace to John Belford, Esquire, Monday, April 24th. Fate is weaving a whimsical web for thy friend, and I see not but I shall be inevitably manacled. Here have I been at work, dig, like a cunning miner at one time, and spreading my snares like an artful fowler at another, and exulting in my contrivances to get this inimitable creature absolutely into my power. Everything made for me. Her brother and uncles were but my pioneers. Her father stormed as I directed him to storm. Mrs. Howe was acted by the springs I set at work. Her daughter was moving for me, yet imagined herself plumb against me. And for the dear creature herself had already run her stubborn neck into my gin, and knew not that she was caught, for I had not drawn my spinges close about her. And just as all this was completed, wouldst thou believe that I should be my own enemy and her friend? That I should be so totally diverted from all my favourite purposes as to propose to marry her before I went to town, in order to put it out of my own power to resume them? When thou knowest this, wilt thou not think that my black angel plays me booty, and has taken it into his head to urge me to the indissoluble tie, that he might be more sure of me, from the complex transgressions to which he will certainly stimulate me when wedded, than perhaps he thought he could be from the simple sins in which I have so long allowed myself, that they seem to have a plea of habit. Thou wilt be still more surprised when I tell thee that there seems to be a coalition going forward between the black angels and the white ones. For here has hers induced her, in 1 hour, and by one retrograde accident, to acknowledge what the charming creature never before acknowledged, a preferable favour for me. She even avows an intention to be mine, without reformation conditions. She permits me to talk of love to her, of the irrevocable ceremony. Yet another extraordinary postpones that ceremony, chooses to set out for London, and even to go to the widow's in town. Well, but how comes all this about, methinks thou askest? Thou, Lovelace, dealest in wonders, yet aimest not at the marvellous. How did all this come about? I will tell thee. I was in danger of losing my charmer forever. She was soaring upward to her native skies. She was got above the earth by means, too, of the earth-born. And something extraordinary was to be done to keep her with us sublunnaries. And what so effectually as the soothing voice of love, and the attracting offer of matrimony from a man not hated, can fix the attention of the maiden heart, aching with uncertainty, and before impatient of the questionable question. This, in short, was the case. While she was refusing all manner of obligation to me, keeping me at haughty distance, in hopes that her cousin Morden's arrival would soon fix her in full and absolute independence of me, disgusted likewise as her adorer for holding himself the reins of his own passions instead of giving them up to her control, she writes a letter urging an answer to a letter before sent, for her apparel, for her jewels, and some gold which she had left behind her, all which was to save her pride from obligation, and to promote the independence her heart was set upon. And what followed but a shocking answer, made still more shocking by the communication of a father's curse upon a daughter's deserving only blessings? A curse upon the cursor's heart, and a double one upon the transmitter's, the spiteful, the envious Arabella. Absent when it came, on my return I found her recovering from fits, again to fall into stronger fits, and nobody expecting her life. 6 messengers dispatched to find me out. Nor wonder at her being so affected, she whose filial piety gave her dreadful faith in her father's curses, and the curse of this gloomy tyrant extending, to use her own words when she could speak, to both worlds, or that it had turned, in the moment of its utterance, to a mortal quinsy, and sticking in his gullet had choked the old excretor, as a warning to all such unnatural fathers. What a miscreant had I been, not to have endeavoured to bring her back, by all the endearments, by all the vows, by all the offers that I could make her. I did bring her back, more than a father to her, for I have given her a life her unnatural father had well nigh taken away. Shall I not cherish the fruits of my own benefaction? I was earnest in my vows to marry, and my ardour to urge the present time was a real ardour. But extreme dejection with a mingled delicacy, that in her dying moments I doubt not she will preserve, have caused her to refuse me the time, though not the solemnity. For she has told me that now she must be wholly in my protection, being destitute of every other. More indebted still, thy friend, as thou seest, to her cruel relations than to herself for her favour. She has written to Miss Howe an account of their barbarity, but has not acquainted her how very ill she was. Low, very low she remains, yet, dreading her stupid brother's enterprise, she wants to be in London, where, but for this accident, and wouldst thou have believed it, for my persuasion, seeing her so very ill, she would have been this night, and we shall actually set out on Wednesday morning, if she be not worse. And now for a few words with thee on the heavy preachment of Saturday last. Thou art apprehensive that the lady is now truly in danger, and it is a miracle, thou tellest me, if she withstand such an attempter. Knowing what we know of the sex, thou sayest, thou shouldst dread, wert thou me, to make further trial, lest thou shouldst succeed. And in another place tellest me, that thou pleadest not for the state for any favour thou hast for it. What an advocate art thou for matrimony! Thou wert ever an unhappy fellow at argument. Does the trite stuff with which the rest of thy letter abounds, in favour of wedlock, strike with the force that this which I have transcribed does against it? Thou takest great pains to convince me, and that from the distress the lady is reduced to, chiefly by her friends' persecutions and implacableness, I hope thou wilt own, and not from me as yet, that the proposed trial will not be a fair trial. But let me ask thee, is not calamity the test of virtue? And wouldst thou not have me value this charming creature upon proof of her merits? Do I not intend to reward her by marriage, if she stand that proof? But why repeat I what I have said before? Turn back, thou egregious arguer, turn back to my long letter of the 13th, and thou wilt there find every syllable of what thou hast written either answered or invalidated. But I am not angry with thee, Jack. I love opposition. As gold is tried by fire, and virtue by temptation, so is sterling wit by opposition. Have I not, before thou settest out as an advocate for my fair one, often brought thee in, as making objections to my proceedings for no other reason than to exalt myself by proving thee a man of straw? As Homer raises up many of his champions, and gives them terrible names, only to have them knocked on the head by his heroes. However, take to thee this one piece of advice. Evermore be sure of being in the right when thou presumest to sit down to correct thy master. And another, if thou wilt, never offer to invalidate the force which a virtuous education ought to have in the sex, by endeavouring to find excuses for their frailty from the frailty of ours. For are we not devils to each other? They tempt us, we tempt them. Because we men cannot resist temptation, is that a reason that women ought not, when the whole of their education is caution and warning against our attempts? Do not their grandmothers give them one easy rule? Men are to ask, women are to deny. Well, but to return to my principal subject, let me observe that be my future resolutions what they will, as to this lady, the contents of the violent letter she has received have set me at least a month forward with her. I can now, as I hinted, talk of love and marriage, without control or restriction, her injunctions no more my terror. In this sweetly familiar way shall we set out together for London. Mrs. Sorling's eldest daughter, at my motion, is to attend her in the chaise, while I ride by way of escort, for she is extremely apprehensive of the Singleton plot, and has engaged me to be all patience if anything should happen on the road. But nothing, I am sure, will happen, for by a letter received just now from Joseph, I understand that James Harlowe has already laid aside his stupid project, and this by the earnest desire of all those of his friends to whom he had communicated it, who were afraid of the consequence that might attend it. But it is not over with me, however, although I am not determined at present as to the uses I may make of it. My beloved tells me she shall have her clothes sent her. She hopes also her jewels and some gold which she left behind her. But Joseph says clothes only will be sent. I will not, however, tell her that. On the contrary, I say there is no doubt but they will send all she wrote for. The greater her disappointment from them, the greater must be her dependence on me. But after all, I hope I shall be enabled to be honest to a merit so transcendent. The devil take thee, though, for thy opinion, give so mal a propos as she may overcome. If thou designest to be honest, methinks thou sayest, why should not Singleton's plot be over with thee, as it is with her brother? Because, if I must answer thee, where people are so modestly doubtful of what they are able to do, it is good to leave them a loophole. And let me add that when a man's heart is set upon a point, and anything occurs to beat him off, he will find it very difficult, when the suspending reason ceases, to forbear resuming it. End of Letter 60. Letter 61 of Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Larry Wilson. Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3, by Samuel Richardson, Chapter 61. Mr. Lovelace to John Belford, Esquire, Tuesday, April 25th. All hands at work in preparation for London. What makes my heart beat so strong? Why rises it to my throat in such half-choking flutters when I think of what this removal may do for me? I am hitherto resolved to be honest, and that increases my wonder at these involuntary commotions. 'Tis a plotting villain of a heart. It ever was, and ever will be, I doubt. Such a joy when any roguery is going forward, I so little its master. A head likewise well turned to answer the triangular varlet's impulses. No matter. I will have one struggle with thee, old friend, and if I cannot overcome thee now, I never will again attempt to conquer thee. The dear creature continues extremely low and dejected. Tender blossom! How unfit to contend with the rude and ruffling winds of passion, and haughty and insolent control! Never till now from under the wing, it is not enough to say of indulging, but of admiring parents, the mother's bosom only fit to receive this charming flower. This was the reflection that, with mingled compassion and augmented love, arose to my mind when I beheld the charmer reposing her lovely face upon the bosom of the widow Sorlings, from a recovered fit, as I entered soon after she had received her execrable sister's letter. How lovely in her tears! And as I entered, her uplifted face significantly bespeaking my protection, as I thought, and can I be a villain to such an angel? I hope not. But why, Belford, why once more puttest thou me in mind that she may be overcome? And why is her own reliance on my honour so late and so reluctantly shown? But after all, so low, so dejected continues she to be, that I am terribly afraid I shall have a vapourish wife, if I do not marry. I should then be doubly undone. Not that I shall be much at home with her, perhaps after the first fortnight or so. But when a man has been ranging like a painful bee from flower to flower, perhaps for a month together, and the thoughts of home and a wife begin to have their charms with him, to be received by a Niobe, who like a wounded vine weeps her vitals away, while she but involuntarily curls about him, how shall I be able to bear that? May heaven restore my charmer to health and spirits. I hourly pray that a man may see whether she can love anybody but her father and mother. In their power, I am confident, it will be at any time to make her husband joyless, and that, as I hate them so heartily, is a shocking thing to reflect upon. Something more than a woman, an angel in some things, but a baby in others. So father-sick, so family fond. What a poor chance stands a husband with such a wife, unless, forsooth, they vouchsafe to be reconciled to her, and continue reconciled. It is infinitely better for her and for me that we should not marry. What a delightful manner of life, oh, that I could persuade her to it, would be the life of honour to be with such a woman. The fears, the inquietudes, the uneasy days, the restless nights, all arising from doubts of having disobliged me. Every absent dreaded to be an absence for ever, and then how amply rewarded, and rewarding by the rapture-causing return! Such a passion as this keeps love in a continual fervour, makes it all alive. The happy pair, instead of sitting dozing and nodding at each other in opposite chimney-corners in a winter evening and over a wintry love, always new to each other, and having always something to say. Thou knowest in my verses to my Stella my mind on this occasion. I will lay these verses in her way, as if undesignedly, when we are together at the widow's, that is to say, if we do not soon go to church by consent. She will thence see what my notions are of wedlock. If she receives them with any sort of temper, that will be a foundation, and let me alone to build upon it. Many a girl has been carried, who never would have been attempted, had she showed a proper resentment when her ears or her eyes were first invaded. I have tried a young creature by a bad book, a light quotation, or an indecent picture, and if she has borne that, or only blushed, and not been angry, and more especially if she has leered and smiled, that girl have I and old Satan put down for our own. Oh, how could I warn these little rogues if I would? Perhaps envy, more than virtue, will put me upon setting up beacons for them when I grow old and joyless. Tuesday afternoon. If you are in London when I get thither, you will see me soon. My charmer is a little better than she was. Her eyes show it, and her harmonious voice, hardly audible last time I saw her, now begins to cheer my heart once more. But yet she has no love, no sensibility. There is no addressing with her those meaning yet innocent freedoms, innocent at first setting out, that they may be called, which softens others of her sex. The more strange this, as she now acknowledges preferable favour for me, and is highly susceptible of grief. Grief mollifies and enervates. The grieved mind looks round it, silently implores consolation, and loves the soother. Grief is ever an inmate with joy. Though they won't show themselves at the same window at the same time, yet they have the whole house in common between them. End of Letter 61. Letter 62 of Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Larry Wilson. Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3, by Samuel Richardson, Chapter 62. Mr. Lovelace to John Belford, Esquire, Wednesday, April 26th. At last my lucky star has directed us into the desired port, and we are safely landed. Well says Howe, the wise and active conquer difficulties by daring to attempt them. Sloth and folly shiver and shrink at sight of toil and hazard, and make them possibility they fear. But in the midst of my exultation, something, I know not what to call it, checks my joys, and glooms over my brighter prospects. If it be not conscience, it is wondrously like what I thought so many, many years ago. Surely, Lovelace, methinks thou sayest, thy good motions are not gone off already. Surely thou wilt not now at last be villain to this lady. I can't tell what to say to it. Why would not the dear creature accept of me, when I so sincerely offered myself to her acceptance? Things already appear with a very different face now I have got her here. Already have our mother and her daughters been about me. Charming lady, What a complexion! What eyes! What majesty in her person! Oh, Mr. Lovelace, you are a happy man. You owe us such a lady. Then they remind me of my revenge and my hatred to her whole family. Sally was so struck with her at first sight that she broke out to me in these lines of Dryden: "Fairer to be seen than the fair lily on the flowery green, more fresh than May herself in blossoms new." I sent to thy lodgings within half an hour after our arrival to receive thy congratulation upon it, but thou wert at Edgware, it seems. My beloved, who is so charmingly amended, is retired to her constant employment, writing. I must content myself with the same amusement till she shall be pleased to admit me to her presence, for already have I given to every one her cue. And among the rest, who dost thou think is to be her maidservant? Deb Butler. Ah, Lovelace, and ah, Belford, it can't be otherwise. But what dost think Deb's name is to be? Why, Dorcas Wykes. And won't it be admirable if, either through fear, fright, or good liking, we can get my beloved to accept Dorcas Wykes for a bedfellow? In so many ways will it be now in my power to have the dear creature that I shall not know which of them to choose. But here comes the widow with Dorcas Wykes in her hand, and I am to introduce them both to my fair one. So the honest girl is accepted, of good parentage, but through a neglected education, plaguy illiterate. She can neither write nor read writing. A kinswoman of Mrs. Sinclair could not therefore well be refused, the widow in person recommending her, and the wench only taken till her Hannah can come. What an advantage has one imposing or forward nature over courteous one! So here may something arise to lead into correspondencies, and so forth. To be sure, a person need not be so wary, so cautious of what she writes, or what she leaves upon her table or toilet, when her attendant cannot read. It would be a miracle, as thou sayest, if this lady can save herself. And having gone so far, how can I recede? Then my revenge upon the Harlowes. To have run away with a daughter of theirs, to make her a Lovelace, to make her one of a family so superior to her own, what a triumph, as I have hitherto observed, to them! But to run away with her, and to bring her to my lure in the other light, what a mortification of their pride! What a gratification of my own! Then these women are continually at me. These women, who before my whole soul and faculties were absorbed in the love of this single charmer, used always to oblige me with the flower and the first fruits of their garden. Indeed, my goddess should not have chosen this London widow's. But I dare say, if I had, she would not. People who will be dealing in contradiction ought to pay for it, and to be punished by the consequences of our own choice. What a moral lies there! What a deal of good may I not be the occasion of from a little evil! Dorcas is a neat creature both in person and dress, her countenance not vulgar, and I am in hopes, as I hinted above, that her lady will accept of her for her bedfellow, in a strange house, for a week or so. But I saw she had a dislike to her at her very first appearance. Yet I thought the girl behaved very modestly, overdid it a little perhaps. Her ladyship shrunk back and looked shy upon her. The doctrine of sympathies and antipathies is a surprising doctrine. But Dorcas will be excessively obliging, and win her lady's favour soon, I doubt not. I am secure in one of the wench's qualities, however. She is not to be corrupted. A great point that, since a lady and her maid, when heartily of one party, will be too hard for half a score devils. The dear creature was no less shy when the widow first accosted her at her alighting, yet I thought that honest Dolman's letter had prepared her for her masculine appearance. And now I mention that letter, why dost thou not wish me joy, Jack? Joy of what? Why, joy of my nuptials. Know then, that said is done with me, when I have a mind to have it so, and that we are actually man and wife, only that consummation has not passed, bound down to the contrary of that, by a solemn vow, till a reconciliation with her family take place. The women here are told so. They know it before my beloved knows it, and that, thou wilt say, is odd. But how shall I do to make my fair one keep her temper on the intimation? Why is she not here? At Mrs. Sinclair's. But if she will hear reason, I doubt not to convince her that she ought to acquiesce. She will insist, I suppose, upon my leaving her, and that I shall not take up my lodgings under the same roof. But circumstances are changed since I first made her that promise. I have taken all the vacant apartments, and must carry this point also. I hope in a while to get her with me to the public entertainments. She knows nothing of the town, and has seen less of its diversions than ever woman of her taste, her fortune, her endowments did see. She has indeed a natural politeness which transcends all acquirement. The most capable of any one I ever knew of judging what 100 things are, by seeing one of a like nature. Indeed, she took so much pleasure in her own chosen amusements, till persecuted out of them, that she had neither leisure nor inclination for the town diversions. These diversions will amuse, and the deuce is in it if a little susceptibility will not put forth now she receives my address, especially if I can manage it so as to be allowed to live under one roof with her. What though the sensibility be at first faint and reluctant, like the appearance of an early spring flower in frosty winter, which seems afraid of being nipped by an easterly blast, that will be enough for me. I hinted to thee in a former that I had provided books for the ladies' indoor amusement. Sally and Polly are readers. My beloved's light closet was their library, and several pieces of devotion have been put in, brought on purpose at second hand. I was always for forming a judgment of the reading part of the sex by their books. The observations I have made on this occasion have been of great use to me, as well in England as out of it. The sagacious lady may possibly be as curious in this point as her Lovelace. So much for the present. Thou seest that I have a great deal of business before me, yet I will write again soon. End of Letter 62. End of Clarissa Harlowe, Volume 3, by Samuel Richardson.